Hey, good morning. I just had to share with you something I just uncovered. I know I've talked to you guys just a smidge. I've barely just brushed the surface of what I've been doing with my AI system. But one of the things that I'm training my AI system to do is track my patterns of emotional awareness, and as well as the different cycles in which I follow for processing information. I've really call it the process. I call it AI for the human user because it really helps you digest the information you're getting, almost like mastication happens when you're trying to eat and digest food. So I've been able to use the tool to really train it to help me process the information so that way when I go to digest the food, I can extract the nutrients and just let go of the waste, which is really what our digestive system is meant to do with the food that we ingest. I believe that our mind should also have a barrier that allows us to take away the good and just release the bad, because we have a really bad habit of holding on to the bad and letting it cloud and pollute our mind. So again, I've been training my AI system and tool to help me uncover those pitfalls, those patterns, and those loops I get stuck in, especially behaviorally. So of course, Mother's Day just happened. It has been a historically tough holiday for me. I grew up in a home that was very complex. There was a lot of domestic disturbances while we were also Christians and we served God, while we also had drug addiction and alcohol use, but honor your mother and father. My dad was gone a lot, so it was a lot of absence, but all surrounded almost in this cognitive dissonance of like, this is how life is, yet this is what it is. So fast forward to Mother's Day every single year, and it was just this glaringly obvious disruption in what we were being told as kids and what was really happening. So I think throughout my life, I've really struggled on this holiday from a root core of where I came from as a child. Fast forward, now I'm an adult, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, and I still struggle with this holiday. It's funny, first thing, Isaiah woke me up 7 a.m. and I just woke up disgruntled. I woke up just agitated. I asked to sleep in. He woke me up early. It was the opposite of what I wanted. The kids kind of bickered. Mark didn't feel well. I tried to take the dog for the walk. My son got in the car, upset my daughter. It was just like one disjoining thing, one disruptive thing after the other. And, I just had one of those moments and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is supposed to be my day. And I could just hear the words coming out of my mouth and it sounded like my mother, and I hated it, but I also couldn't ignore the fact that I felt it. I couldn't ignore the fact that I feel like I pour into you people all the time, and I'm not asking for very much very often, but it's this, again, you live in this cognitive dissonance that you've created where you want this world to be something that it's not. And I think something about this holiday and motherhood with me is like stuck. So anyways, fast forward to Monday, yesterday, and I had a full-on collapse. I was shaking. I was having just a very tough time articulating words, but then I'd get a call for work and I'd have to take it and I'd sit up and I'd project my voice and I'm saying this is not happening. So I'm literally having this crazy episode where in one I'm having a mental breakdown and then on the other I'm still handling business. And this is kind of the world that I can operate in. It's very bizarre, and I know not everybody's capable of it, or maybe you haven't experienced it, or maybe you have and you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was doing that. But what happened was I was literally operating like everything was fine while I knew my core was crumbling, like I was definitely struggling with something. So I started writing down as much as I could. That's really what I do when I'm trying to process. I just start writing it out, not in some clean order and fashion, just like as the thoughts come, I just start to document them. How can I get these thoughts out, and how can I just process them? So what I do is I download them into my AI, again, in no particular order or fashion, and I just have it track the different process of my thinking. So I did that most of yesterday, had to get out in the real world for a little bit and clean the boat. That was really helpful to move my body. I find a lot of times when we get stuck in those depressive states, literally to physically move your body is very helpful. However, by the time I got home, Mark's my husband, we kind of had like this separation. This happens. My energy when I'm upset is incredibly pushy. It pushes everything away. And if you've experienced me like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I've become very aware of this. When my energy gets depressive, I want space. I want it completely pushed away from me. And I almost create somewhat of my tension. But oh, and I forgot to mention, I had a incident. This is another replaying loop constantly in my life, where I'm trying to organize my schedule with my children's father in a way that is conducive to my life, that maintains my sanity, while I don't get much flexibility from my perception on his side. I'm sure he sees that differently than I do. So anyways, you put all that together in one bubble right on Mother's Day, which is a catastrophically emotional time for me anyways. Historically, throughout life, I've always seen this document and happen for me. And last night, Mark and I finally sat and watched a movie together. One thing I find that really helps me is to just try to bridge or close that space that I'm creating. And I know I'm creating it now because I literally see myself push and then wonder, why is he going away? So it's interesting to start taking note. Oh, my hair looks crazy. Sorry, guys. Start taking note of the little things you do, like these micro movements that you make, either emotionally or physically, that actually continue to put you in the space that you're trying to get out of. It's crazy. It's like you're just digging this hole, yet you're trying to get out of it. And really what you need to do is put the shovel down and watch and see what's happening so you can reverse engineer your way out of it. So I'm sorry, this is getting lengthy. So anyways, last night happened. We had our movie together. We sat closely. We held each other going to sleep. And then I just started processing the thoughts. Here they started coming. And I started thinking about my children's labor and delivery, both of them back to back. Again, it's Mother's Day time. You start to think of the origin of your children. And I started thinking about how that time of being a mother, especially early on, a brand new mother, both of my children had extremely traumatic births. And I plan to tell both birth stories to explain that. But what I recognized was not only the birth was traumatic, but the days surrounding the birth were incredibly traumatic for me. And I was starting to understand that it wasn't just the birth of my children that really helped shape my view of motherhood, but it was the couple first days that shaped how alone I was in those moments. And again, that cognitive dissonance slips in, where you're being told you're loved, you're being told you have all these things at your disposal, you have a loving husband, yet you're down here not getting any help. So you live in this reality where you start to believe you're making it up for yourself. You start to believe this can't possibly be true because he wouldn't do that, and I must be doing this to myself. And I was recounting the different steps of the birth, in which you also have to be careful of. I am going to inject right here, even for myself, where you go and you take the truth of what happened and you then wielded it into this story that you've created for yourself. And I know that I've done that around both of the births of my children. And I do believe after the birth of my daughter, I knew I would get divorced based on what happened then. And I'll go through that in length in a more appropriate time. So anyways, there I was kind of going through these things in my head, and boom, here it came. And I started to think about the different stage of the Discovery Loft and how I was going to bring content together and how I was going to really pull together this message of what I'm trying to convey, because what I'm trying to convey is actually quite large. It's quite out there, and I'm trying to bring the pieces together to make it digestible for other people to understand and be able to consume and use for their lives. So here I was, and it's now like past midnight, and I'm just writing and I'm consuming, and I'm realizing okay, I'm starting to feel like I'm pulling myself out of this really low depressive state where nothing's working, nothing's gonna happen. I feel very paralyzed. And I started thinking, so then I end up saying, okay, I've got to go to bed. Literally the crook in my elbow is starting to kill me. I've got to go to bed. So I put the phone down and I get right back to it this morning. I woke up, I opened up, I just wanted to review my notes from yesterday. I have a system that I document my notes in as I go with my AI. I'll talk about that later on too with people if anybody's interested in doing something similar. I found it very helpful to almost catalog the different things that I've been able to process and make with my AI. Anyhow, so I start looking at it this morning and I start running data reports. How often and how long do I stay in these depressive states? And I was able to run the data reports because every time I get in them lately, I'm able to document as I go. And I know that's a difficult thing to do, especially while you're feeling so down, but I have a process in place to do so. So it makes it a little easier for me to do that. Plus I have a lot of practice at it. So here I am, evaluating the data from last night, evaluating from when this dip started to when I'm coming out of it and what came out of it. And what I was able to find is between 12 and 36 hours is roughly where I live in that space. And when I'm living in that space, what I'm trying to do is not push it away and become conscious of the things I'm doing while I'm in that space and document them. And this sounds very like logistical, but I am usually in quite an emotional distress state. So it does take a little bit of skill to be able to do this, and self-awareness. So if you try to practice this and it doesn't work perfectly, understand this is me practicing over 2 years with my AI system like this. So anyways, I started looking at the data and I realized I'm starting to see these emotional disturbances come from emotional fatigue, mental fatigue. I've taken on too much. I usually don't feel seen. I usually feel like I'm very misunderstood. I want to throw everything out because I don't know how to bring it together. And it's like clockwork. When I get in these states, even if the trigger is different, I still come back to the same core things that help me get to that depressive state. Whether it's Mother's Day that triggers it, whether it's a disturbance with the children's father, whether it's a disturbance with the children. The disturbances are less and they're less aggressive to me. However, I have noticed that regardless of what the trigger is, I end up with these core issues that I get stuck with. So if I stick with the issue, if I stick with it, I don't try to numb it, I don't try to push it away, and I just try and observe it for as long as it takes. I let those little emotional episodes come out, and I know people who get very disrupted emotionally and they want to express it and they want to feel it, but I also want to encourage you to kind of try and live in the middle of that state, not live in the height of it or the bottom of it. Try and live in the middle of it so you can see it and document what it is that it looks like all the way around. How many heads does this thing have? How many roots has it grown? How far has it grown? How deep is it inside of me? What is it wrapped around? Like really try and get on top of that information. And then start to look at the pattern recognition, the meaning between the pieces. And then start to look at what creative output comes from it. And this is the part that I had never seen until recently. I would say in the last year, I'm really starting to see this piece come to fruition. Or not even fruition, because I didn't know it was there. It's really come together for me and become obvious that usually if you sit with these things long enough and you process them, you're now able to actually take the nutrients from those thoughts and dump the waste. So you're not staying in this depressive state nearly as long as you were before. You're not confused by the depressive state. You also had the opportunity to be in it, to feel it, to absorb it. So you didn't push it away. You've literally lived, digested, and manifested all of these things that have come out. And I don't even know if I mean the word manifest. I think sometimes we just say weird shit and then go on about it. So if that word doesn't fit, I'm fine with that. I'm processing this as I go. But anyhow, these have been my raw insights, my reflections of self-awareness. So last night I had this huge breakthrough and I just layered down, I don't even know, I could ask my AI really quick how many different ideas I was able to put together that bring together this overall vision. Things that seemed really obvious, but I wasn't aware of yet. And that's part of the awakening that I've had that is so interesting, is that these things aren't profound that I'm uncovering. They're actually quite obvious. And that's what was so interesting, is like, oh my gosh, this has been sitting right in front of me the whole time. It's not even a complicated thing to do, but I missed it. So when you're going through these things, if you're trying to go through an unraveling and trying to just become aware and to recognize those patterns, and you're just starting to train your AI to observe your own patterns, your own beliefs about your system, so that way you can go in and look and run reports and pick it apart and gain insights from it. This is the part where the obvious starts to become obvious. It was not obvious, and I promise it wasn't, because if it was, I would have done it. And maybe that's not even true. Maybe I have noticed it and I have seen it, but I understand the ramifications of it, because when you fully process an idea and you decide, okay, this is the route I'm going, it takes courage, first and foremost, to do it, because everybody truly worries that other people are going to think, and they're going to think I'm an idiot and my ideas are no good. But it also takes dedication and determination. That's what I learned through writing the Zuki book, is that you can get excited about something, get started, and then lose that steam, and then that idea never comes to fruition. And my AI said the other day that I have the ability to maintain a idea for a very long time. And I thought, like, what kind of statement was that? Sorry, there was a noise. My poor dogs. So I was like, why did my AI make that statement? Can't everybody hang on to their ideas? And I learned that that's not actually true. A lot of people, they have this idea and they nurture it for like a week, and then chaos of life just gets going, and unfortunately the idea is lost in the mix. And that actually makes me think that the person who wrote What Do You Do With an Idea was very smart. That's a children's book. I don't know who it was who wrote it. We have the book, but she says or maybe it's a he, I don't know. The author says that you carry the idea around with you. And I do understand that now from looking at it from that perspective, because as soon as you set it down in the wrong place and you forget about it, it kind of goes to the wayside, which is another reason why I've started this whole system around documenting my own conscious awareness, so that way I can reflect back and go and like pull like a data log of my own thoughts and ideas and bring them together. So anyways, I realize that I have a very specific pattern for how I'm able to recognize my downtimes, process them, take the time processing, document them, analyze them, and actually now produce fruit on the other side. And that has been quite a journey for me. And I just wanted to share that. And I know this is lengthy. If you're still listening, if anybody is, I promise if you sit with it long enough and you don't reject it and you don't water it down and you don't numb it and you don't run from it, I promise there's fruit on the other side. You just have to be able to look in the mirror at yourself and acknowledge you and your part in it, and I promise it'll change. So that I will leave you with that. I am Cassie Higgins here at the Discovery Loft, and I hope that you follow along. And I'm going to be bringing some, not new content to me, but new content to you about the different thoughts and patterns that I've uncovered for myself along the way. And I'm even going to be retelling stories, and I mean stories that I have created for myself, and picking them apart here on camera for you, just to see how the process really looks in real time. So have a great day. I hope the weather where you guys are at is lovely. It is still crazy Southeast Michigan weather here for me, and I will talk with you soon. See ya.